Have you ever had breakfast with Jesus? You know, a couple of weeks ago I did, but the problem was being a preacher, I know everything. And I know everything how Jesus appears, but I missed it. Northside Hospital in Canton, Georgia. Waiting with a family, doing the things preachers do, you know, and I was feeling so good about myself. I was at the hospital at 5:30 in the morning. Oh, I patted myself on the back. I'm there with the family. Big waiting room. On the right side of the waiting room, there's nobody there. On the left side, it's just us. 6 or 7 in the family, and we were talking and sharing stories, and I was being all pastoral. And then he came in. Guy dressed in sweatpants with holes all in them. Dirty jacket. Hair all messed up. And of all the places he could have sat, he sat on the left side, right beside me. He sat down and he said, "Good morning." You know, being a preacher, I have to be nice, and so I said good morning to him. For the next 45 minutes to an hour, that's all anybody said. He dominated the conversation. He was from New York originally, but his family disowned him when he moved to Alpharetta. And he had done everything. He was a martial arts specialist. He had been shot a couple of times. I mean, the tales just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, fella, be quiet. I'm a preacher. I'm here for this family. Finally, after that hour had passed and we had learned everything about Nick, he had left Alpharetta to come start a ministry, a homeless ministry in Canton, Georgia. And I thought, yeah, right. One of the ladies that I was with said, "You know, I'm kind of hungry. Let's go eat." And I stood straight up and I said, "Absolutely, let's go eat." And so we all got up and we left Nick there. And then that lady who said we need to go eat, she turned around and she said, "Nick, can we buy you some breakfast? Bring it back to you?" He said, "Yes, that would be good." "What do you eat?" And he said, "Oh, I'll eat anything." And then she said, "Why don't you join us?" I thought, you have got to be kidding me. All through breakfast, Nick could barely eat because he was talking way too much. But then Nick said, "Thank you for breakfast," and he got up and he said, "You know, the people in Alpharetta, my girlfriend and my friends there, I had a home and a business, they said, you have lost your mind for moving to Canton, Georgia to start this homeless ministry. You've lost your mind." You know what Nick said? He said, "I may have lost my mind, but I found my heart." See, I had breakfast with Jesus. I just didn't realize it. Serve the Lord with gladness. That's what Nick taught me. Several weeks ago, I shared Dr. Craddock's story. And Les wanted me to share that story again. And any Craddock story is good for 100 times. Dr. Craddock told the story this way. He said that a father and the family, they're driving home from church late one night, ready to get home to watch TV and to do those things families do at night. Kids do homework. Middle of a rainstorm, and they're driving down the road to their house when all of a sudden the kids yell, "Stop!" And the father slammed on the brakes and said, "What's wrong?" And the kids said, there's a cat on the side of the road. "Daddy, you need to go back and get it." The father said, "We have a zoo at our house right now. I'm not going back to get the cat." Put his car in drive and started down the road, and he looked in his rearview mirror and could see tears in his children's eyes. And so he did what any father would do. He stopped and he put that station wagon in reverse. And he went and he got out in the driving rain, and sure enough, there's this cat. Cat's fur's all matted. You could see its ribs. The father looked at that cat and said, "I'm not bringing that thing home." And he turned around to walk back to the car. Kids crying. So he takes his coat off. He throws it around the cat. The cat scratches him. The cat bites him. And he thinks, "I'm not taking this cat home." But again, he sees his children. And so he wraps the cat up and puts it in the car. The father and mother decided to leave the cat in their room so the other animals wouldn't bother it. And sure enough, this cat, after it got nutrition, started growing fur again, started gaining weight. One day after they had had the cat for a few months, the father made sure nobody was watching. And he put his hand down. That same hand that the cat had scratched and bit. But this time, the cat just nudged his hand. Dr. Craddock says, I imagine that's a lot like God. God reaches his hand down for us. And we can see it's battered and scarred, but he still reaches for us in love, reminding each of us we have a home with him. You don't know Buster, but you probably know somebody like Buster. The first appointment that I had two churches, Providence and Cool Spring, and Buster used to be the mailman in that part of Iredell County. And Buster, everybody knew Buster. Buster was just that kind of guy that when you saw him, it was like he was a long-lost friend, because Buster could talk to anybody. Being young and out of seminary, of course, at Duke, they taught me everything about ministry. I didn't need to learn anything. That's what I thought. So that first week that we were there, we just had Zach. He's a little baby, and he cried all the time, and so I stayed out a lot. When I would come home, Jamie would greet me with Zach at the door. And she'd say, "I'm leaving." I'd say, "Are you coming back?" And she'd say, "I don't know." But it was in that first week of my first appointment, those two country churches. Buster came to see me. "So you're the new preacher," he said. "I got grandkids older than you. I'm going to teach you a little bit about ministry." I said, "Okay, Buster." He said, "Get in the car." So I got in the car, and Buster and I rode over northern Iredell County, and he showed me where everybody lived. And he would say to me, "Now, preacher, Lula, you need to visit her at least 2 times every month." The next one, "Larry, you visit him once a year, he's good." So I made my notes that Buster said. Buster was in church every Sunday morning. He seemed to love God and love Jesus. Happily married for over 50 years. And then, after I'd been there about a year, Buster came to see me. He said, "You're now my preacher. I need to tell you something. I struggle with alcohol. Struggled with it all of my life. I need to stop drinking. But I don't think I can do it on my own. So, preacher, how are you going to help me?" Buster and I talked a little bit. I tried to connect him with an AA group, but that just wasn't Buster. He knew everybody. Buster struggled with that for a few more years. And then it was Christmas Eve, and at Providence Church at Christmas Eve, we did a drop-in communion there. And what that meant was you would come with your family, and you could come and you could kneel at that altar, and I would serve you communion, and then you could go to take care of those things families do on Christmas Eve. Buster came with his family, and he knelt at that altar. Sweat was pouring down his face. Tears streaming down. And he stood up after taking communion, and it was near the end of the time. I think we had communion from 7 to 8, and it was about 7:50, and Buster stayed in the narthex. And I was getting ready to close everything down and walk across the street to the parsonage. And Buster was there. He said, "Preacher, something happened to me tonight. It was like God spoke directly to my heart, and I don't know if it's going to take, but I don't think I want to drink alcohol anymore." "Thank you, preacher." I said, "Buster, I've done nothing. And he said, no, thank you for having communion, because this is like my first communion. Buster met Jesus at a communion rail. Wow. Wow. You know how you can tell that you're getting old? It's when you make a statement like this. Kids nowadays don't play like we used to play when I was growing up. You see, if you grew up in the mountains, you had to find your own kind of entertainment, and part of that entertainment was your mama or your daddy or your granny. They would say, go outside. When I call you for supper, come in. And so you see in the tough streets and neighborhoods of North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, we had gangs. The older kids, my brother Mark and his cronies, and the younger kids. And so when we would get home from school, we would play. We shot ball, we played football, we played baseball, we threw dirt clods at each other. We did everything. But our favorite game was hide and seek. The old gang, the old guys, they always won. Except that one day, Jeff Barong and I, we were the leaders of the young gang, and see, Mark and his buddies, they would pick on me and Jeff, and so it was the world championship of hide and seek. You may have seen it in the paper. The old guys, they were looking for us young guys. Back up on a mountain, Jeff and I went. And oh, did we hide. There was a little cave there that nobody knew about. That was before I knew that you needed to be scared of snakes and spiders. And we could hear the old guys, "Where are you? We see you," all down below us, and we're in the cave, and Jeff and I, we're just laughing. Never going to find us. And then we heard my mom say, "Boys, it's supper time." But we didn't move because this was the world championship. You know, when you're in the woods and the sun goes down, guess what? It gets really dark. And when you're hiding in a cave that you don't really know that well, and you're going to have to navigate going down the mountain without any light, it's pretty tough. So I heard Mark yell, "Paul, Jeff, come on, supper's ready." We weren't playing that game. 20 minutes went by, 30 minutes, and then it was pitch dark. Jeff got scared. I don't know about that. We tried to make our way down the hill, but there was really no path. And then I remember starting at the bottom of that hill, I started to see a little bit of light. And I heard my daddy's voice. "Paul?" I said, "Dad, here I am." The light goes up to my voice. Dad said, "Keep talking and I'll find you." Sure enough, that light got closer and closer and closer. When Dad got there, I've never been so happy to see my father. But he had Mark with him. And those words, "Found you." Isn't it great that we worship a God who says, "I don't care what kind of darkness you're in, I'll find you."